Hey y'all, this is Byron. Just want to put something out there. Yes, I am a mental health therapist, and yes, my couch is quite comfortable. However, if you're listening to this podcast, it is not a substitute for a therapeutic relationship with a certified or licensed mental health therapist. So, though I appreciate you taking the time out to listen to me and hopefully gain some information and insight about what's going on with you from listening to this podcast, take the time to seek out mental health resources in your area if you so need to. Thanks for listening and hope you enjoy.
Thinking of cruising, a race cap it to the side. Thinking the police gon' pull me over with this herb off in my ride. So I had to break a weave under the armrest, under the leather. And thinking of starting a ways to make my life a little bit better than the dope peddler.
All right, here it goes. What's going on? How y'all doing? My name is Byron Taylor. No, a few of y'all probably know who I am. I got the idea to do this thing. I was featured on an episode of the Not So Newlywed podcast. I believe that was last year, towards the end of the year, where we talked about mental health and dating and relationships. As some of you know who was listening to that episode, my name is Byron Taylor. I am a provisionally certified mental health therapist in the state of Mississippi. Oddly enough, I was supposed to actually test for certification this week, but thanks to hurricane season, that got pushed back for a little bit. So we'll check back on that later. I am a mental health therapist and have been working with children and adolescents and their families for Canopy Children's Solutions here in Mississippi for the past year and a half. So I got a lot of great feedback from friends and family, fellow podcasters after I did the guest spot on Not So Newlywed last year. And a few people kicked around the idea of, hey, it'd be dope for a male therapist, a black male therapist especially, to do a mental health podcast, maybe for black men or for black youth. And I've kicked the idea around a lot, and I'll get into what my reservations were, and it'll also be the topic for this very first session. So, first thing I'd like to say, that ain't the first thing, but at this point, I would like to welcome you all to the Captain's Couch. If this podcast gets off the ground and starts making big traction, and Crystal from the Read hears this, yes, I did kind of co-opt the name from Crystal's Couch. I'm sorry. I love the podcast. Please don't sue me. But I thought it would be a funny name because I was sitting on my couch thinking about it one day when I was just chilling at home. And as some of you know, my handle online is Captain Ingenuity, which stems from me being a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan and the captain of my ship. And of course, as a mental health therapist or as a psychologist, you tend to think of someone laying on the couch while they're talking to their psychologist or their counselor or therapist. So I felt like it was just an absolute perfect name to go with. So I'd like to welcome y'all to your very first session here on the Captain's Couch. So a little bit about myself. I graduated from high school, Bay High here in Bay St. Louis, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. I was literally half the man that I am now. And I mean that physically. If you go back and look at my high school pictures to where I look like now, my coworker literally told me on Friday, dude, you don't look anything like you used to look. I'm like, yeah. That's what happens, man. Graduated high school in 2002. I graduated from the University of Southern Mississippi, my proud alma mater, Southern Miss to the top, in 2007 with a Bachelor's of Science in Psychology. And then I got married and ended up getting my master's degree in 2013 from William Carey University with a Master of Science with the emphasis on child and adolescent counseling. I have had a very interesting road to get from college to actually getting to work as a therapist. So I worked at a adult psychiatric hospital for about 6 years between finishing undergrad and working on my master's degree. After about 5 years, I got hurt on the job while I was still in grad school working on my master's. It actually gave me the opportunity to actually finish my degree program, to finish my internship, my practicum, get my actual on-the-job training, that went along with the degree program. So it was a blessing in disguise, though a very painful one, because ACL surgery hurts. It sucks. And all props to like every athlete who has ever had ACL surgery and bounced back from it, because that was a lot to go through. It was so painful. I don't think I've ever experienced pain to that degree ever in my life. And if you ever ask my ex-wife or my mom or my daughter about how I reacted after my surgery, they will tell you that it was just comical, the look on my face of sheer pain, because I just couldn't scream to get the pain out because I hurt so badly. It was rough. Oh, good times. So after I finished my master's degree, I went looking for jobs with the aim of finding a mental health therapist job post grad school. Unfortunately, the mental health resources in Hattiesburg, where I lived at, were limited and sparse at the time. And when I went looking, I actually had an interview for a job and would have gotten the job, but they informed me that because I did not physically have my degree in hand, they couldn't offer me the job at the time, which that was in May. I would get my degree conferred to me in August. So the lady in HR is like, hey, come back in August when you have your degree and we'll see if we can get you on. Got my degree in August, went back, re-interviewed again, never got a call back. Shout out to I'm not gonna slander them, but shout out to them, because I definitely was looking forward to the opportunity and it did not come through. So I did eventually get the opportunity to work at Ellisville State School for 4 years. Ellisville State School is a residential facility for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. For those of you who aren't hip to constantly changing mental health jargon, intellectual and developmental disability is the new term for mental retardation. I'm not exactly sure why or when we changed the terminology, but we did. I don't know. It seems like every few years it changes. So I worked there for 4 years, and it was that was like my lost period of time. I was floundering in a few areas and kind of listless. I wasn't particularly happy with my personal life, with things that were going on at home. And I was, after the first year, pretty much bored of my job. There would be plenty of days where I just didn't care. I would go in, I'd get some work done, a little bit of work done, and me and my office mate would sit down and talk and laugh, and I sleep a lot in my office. It was not very stimulating. I'm a very personable person. Um, uh, Needless to say, having clients who were severely or profoundly intellectually and developmentally disabled and not having the ability to really do anything for themselves or talk really made life at work really, 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 really boring and not fulfilling at all. Um, so that was a 4+ year kind of situation. Then April of 2017 happened. I just lost my uncle, and I made the decision that I was going to seek a divorce. And it kind of changed everything and kind of made me even more anxious than I probably already was. And that'll be the topic of today's session. So when my divorce hit, I was kind of at a crossroads of where I wanted to take my career and where my life was going to go. I had put off the idea of a divorce for quite some time. I didn't really go into depth about it on Not So Newlywed, and I won't go into too much depth about it here. Yes, I did talk on Not So Newlywed that my ex-wife did have some mental health issues, and that was a large contributing factor to the issues in our relationship. But I was struggling with my own as well. I've dealt with probably mild levels, maybe moderate levels of anxiety for most of my life, I think. I had some childhood trauma happen to me that I think that was the start of it. Once I got to middle school, my teenage years is when bullying started happening. And it had a profound impact on my self-esteem. Whether that was with how I internally saw myself or things like basketball where I didn't feel confident about my skill level, or like I kind of sabotaged myself when it came to basketball. Largely because of my anxiety, I would be afraid to go, play ball outside in the park in the hood in the back of town or against tougher competition, because I knew that in my mind, I just didn't feel like I belonged on the court, that I could not even mentally give myself the courage or the strength to actually try, because, as soon as I got shut down on the court, then internally I would kind of turn it on myself of, dude, you suck. Why are you even out here? You're smart. This is not going to get you anywhere. So why are you even trying? So yeah, I self-sabotaged myself in my development as an individual outside of being smart. I was always smart. I've also dealt with ADHD for the most of my childhood and now adulthood. I don't really remember a time where I didn't have difficulty reading or staying focused to read, but that was always my struggle. It didn't really reflect it in my grades because I was a straight A student, and it definitely didn't really reflect it in my behavior because I was a pretty straight-laced kid and got along with pretty much everybody. But I definitely had trouble reading. I've had trouble kind of not blurting things out when I talk, or talking too much, or not catching social cues at times. Whenever I'm in conversations with people, and I just kind of ramble at times. But anxiety has always been something that held me back. I was always confident to a fault until the rejection was a possibility to happen. Rejection was never an issue when it came to my academics. It was always just me and the test, and I was going to beat the test almost every time. But when it came to basketball, when it came to dating, when it came to applying for jobs or scholarships or colleges, I would be extremely afraid, no matter how, accomplished of a child I was, and I was very accomplished. The fear of this is something that I'm setting myself up to fail often held me back from trying. So when it was high school and it was time to apply for scholarships, I would be not willing to do so because I know I wasn't going to get them because ACT scores weren't sufficient enough. When it came time to date, I always would take the safe bet, or what I felt like was a safe bet, even if, it wasn't going to work out for me because I was afraid to try for something that may have been more challenging. When I felt like I needed to say something or voice my opinion, I was never sure enough or reassured enough in my opinion or my feelings or my expertise to even voice my opinion. And the same thing happened when it became marriage. I worried about what other people thought, how they would feel about it, more so than what I really wanted. And for some time, I wanted out. But I was worried about how my daughter would react to it. I was worried about how my parents would react to it. I was worried about how my ex-in-laws would respond to it. I was extremely worried about how my ex-wife would respond to it, which, that's its own story. But in the end, I was just worried about hurting somebody else, even though it was something that I knew that was the best for me. So anxiety has played itself out in my life in so many different ways. So when the separation and the divorce happened, I knew I had a crossroads and a choice to make. So after a lot of thought and a lot of discussion back and forth with friends, like my office mate, shout out to Jennifer, my best friend Ricky, with my parents, I made the decision to search for a job back on the coast and decide to come back home and start over again. So I landed a job at Canopy last year, and I don't know if I've ever been more nervous in my life than when I got the job that I actually went to school for as a therapist. Oh boy, let me tell you. So, on top of discussing anxiety, I will discuss something that I think a lot of us can relate to when it comes to anxiety as it plays out in the form of imposter syndrome. Okay, so reading off an article here from Psychology Today, the reality of imposter syndrome. So, it is not actually a clinically diagnosed disorder. From my understanding of imposter syndrome, at least from my own kind of internalized stance of it, or kind of my experience, it is more of a form of anxiety. It's a psychological term referring to a pattern of behavior where people doubt their accomplishments and have a persistent, often internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. Term was coined by clinical psychologists Pauline Clance and Suzanne Imes in 1978. Initially, research for imposter syndrome was geared towards women. However, we see that it affects just about as many men as it does women, as research has continued on the the term, which I will say as I continue to kind of do this, I'm still kind of workshopping ideas on the whole podcast thing and how long it's going to be, how often I'm going to do it. But I will say this, I am absolutely speaking from the perspective as a black male, very much an understanding of the privilege that a man in this world has. And I'll be speaking to a lot of issues for you fellas out there that we have to address, whether that's our relationship with women and internalizing our insecurities and projecting them on women, or the importance of going to therapy or learning how to be vulnerable and it being a actual strength and a part of masculinity that is actually beneficial and not a detriment to masculinity. Well, I'm going to try to talk a little bit about toxic masculinity and how we can work to teach our young boys to be more vulnerable, allowing them access to other emotions outside of anger and happiness. We'll be talking about different types of mental disorders, mental health symptoms, some strategies and stuff like that we can work on to help address some of those things. And I will say this, yes, this is a mental health podcast. I may curse every now and again. Yeah, I do that a lot. But I cannot stress this enough. Yes, I am a mental health professional, but I am not a substitute for seeking out mental health services for yourself. If you are already in a therapeutic relationship with a therapist or a psychiatrist, awesome. Continue going. Continue going. Continue to progress. Continue to do your thing. You know, chime in, jump in, send your boy a tweet or an instant message if there's a topic you want me to talk about, you know. But keep pressing on to therapy and know that if you're a friend of mine on social media, you know I got you. I got your support. You know, I got your back and everything. If you are not in therapy and you've considered going to therapy for quite some time, you know, I'm a black male therapist. I have also gone to therapy before. It is beneficial. It is healthy. It is normal. You know, it may hurt sometimes because you may be, you know, going through some feelings and some experiences that you haven't gone through since whenever they happened, and you've repressed them for most of your life. But going through those experiences and taking the time to discuss them and figure out, you know, why is it still having an impact on your life can be beneficial. All right. So that's that. That's my disclaimer. If this is all kind of out of order, I apologize. I tend to jump from topic to topic, so try to follow me, and I'll try to work at this whole thing a bit. But I do tend to, even in my therapy sessions, bounce from one topic to the next and have to go back. So we talk about imposter syndrome. We talk about the inability to look at our successes, things that we've achieved, and actually internalizing them and seeing that you are valuable and you're worthy and you are capable of all the things that you have achieved, and they are not just achieved by some sheer luck or good timing. People who suffer with this kind of anxious behavior tend to dismiss what they've achieved or their success, as others believe that they are better and more intelligent and more competent than they actually are. So it is more of feelings of either internally, I don't think that I've accomplished these things, and externally feeling that, well, those people are just projecting that their feelings on me and I didn't actually do these things. I'm not as smart or as good or as skilled as these people think I am. So that's part of my struggle as a therapist. I'm still kind of new at actually working as a therapist, despite my degrees and everything like that. And I've had a bunch of experience in the field of mental health, as I outlined earlier in the episode. There's still definitely times where I doubt my ability and my skills. One of the things that I struggle with is internalizing my children's setbacks when I'm working with them in therapy. If their behavior's out of whack, if, one of my kids, we had a therapy session earlier in the day, and then by the end of the day, the kid was expressing suicidal ideations. And I went back and forth in my mind of, did I offer the right amount of help? Did I ask the right questions? Did I do this? Did I do that? To the point where I couldn't sleep, and to the point that when I met the kid again and I talked to the kid again after they got out of the hospital, I asked him, I'm like, was there something that I could have done to help you that day that I didn't do? And my kid was like, no, it was on me. Like, you did everything you were supposed to do that day. I was okay when you left, and then I just kind of snowballed after you left, but it wasn't on you. When my kids are acting out and having troubles, and the family members are like pissed off with them to the point that they want them gone, I internalize those things and wonder, am I making an impact? Am I using the right therapeutic approach? Is the kid even listening? That's my struggle, and a lot of it goes back to, am I good at this? Am I good enough? Am I wasting my time? I know Ricky's better at this than I am, and I'm just trying to catch up with him. And I get into my own head too much, and it's something that I'm continuously working on. So part of that imposter syndrome led me to this point. I've been toying with the idea of doing this mental health podcast thing, I think, since I was on Not So Newlywed last year. But I kept going back and forth in my brain of, are people going to hear this and think I'm an idiot? Am I really that competent about this field? I mean, yeah, I got these degrees, but I still barely have the work experience. Like, I went back and forth in my brain about this on multiple occasions. I went back and forth in my brain whenever I did Not So Newlywed, if I would even come off as competent, and it helped that the topic we talked about was very much something that I could talk about on a personal and a professional level, that made it a lot more comfortable for me to feel like I was in a safe space to express my both my professional and my personal opinion, because it was also my lived experience. So that made it a lot more comfortable for me to just open up and be like, yeah, this is what we think about and we look for as far as relationships and mental health, and it's how it affects the kids and this, that, and the third, because I lived it. But this is different. This is a lot different. So that was a lot of my fear about doing this whole thing, is ultimately, do I think I'm good enough to actually try to do this? So I'm here, and I think talking to the Womb God, Sterling from Gaming and Then Some, which I've been on there also as well, on the Wakanda cast, which me talking about video games is pretty easy. But, like, Womb, talk to me about this. Like, you never are quite ready to do this until you kind of hop on the mic and do it, and then over time you just get more accustomed to doing it. So this is me actively working through my imposter syndrome and my anxiety. This is going to be a work in progress, I know for sure. But I'm giving this a shot, and I'm out here. So when we talk about imposter syndrome, right? We talk about worrying about things about maybe going for a promotion or applying for a new job, applying for certifications, applying for a transfer, you know. Um, for me, applying for the job and then interviewing was like the scariest thing I think I had done, short of the divorce. I think in the last like 5 years, I think, because it was gonna be a complete change. Like everything was gonna change. Living location, actually going to work and doing what I went to school for, what I've always wanted to do. Um, all of those things, and coming home and moving back to Bay St. Louis was gonna allow me to confront a lot of stuff that I put on the back burner, you know, when it came to being home and feeling like an outcast, like I did when I was in high school, and coming back and kind of reintegrating with my family after my divorce and kind of readjusting those relationships and, you know, figuring out how to get along with my ex-wife and co-parent. You know, all of it was scary, and there were times where I didn't feel equipped to do it, even though I had survived so much more than just, hey, you're gonna go work as a therapist and work with kids. You know, I had survived a lot worse than that, so it was scary, and there are times it still is scary. But I try to do my best, and you know, I try to give myself credit, and I think my coworkers are a lot better at giving me credit for the work that I do than I think I am myself. So I appreciate them for that, but it's something I got to work on a bit more. So back to the article. We know from research that imposter syndrome is in large a reaction to certain circumstances or situations. So while you may feel fully confident to speak in the front of a bunch of people who are younger than you, address your peers could completely undo you. Say for me, taking a algebra test in 10th grade was easy hack for me. Absolutely easy hack for me. But asking this girl that I like out, who isn't a certain person who will remain nameless around that time, yeah, that was no. I couldn't do it. It was impossible. It was an impossible task. Absolutely impossible task. You could be fine at work, but you could have to speak up at a local staff meeting. A tendency towards perfection, fear of failure, continually undermines one's achievements. Are indicators that you might be prone to imposter syndrome. It can be debilitating, causing stress, anxiety, low self-confidence, shame, and in some cases, even depression. Now, I can't necessarily say I've dealt with depression. I would say maybe I had dealt with adjustment disorder, basically because of the situation that I was in when I was married. But I don't know. Maybe in high school, so maybe I might have had like some mild. Well, no, that would have been adjustment. It would have been adjustment disorder, because if it was situational and kind of progressed over time, that's more adjustment disorder than depression. So, but the stress, the anxiety, the low self-confidence, shame, that has absolutely been me. Perhaps the least limiting part of dealing with imposter syndrome is that it can limit our courage to go after new opportunities, explore potential areas of interest, and put ourselves out there in a meaningful way. Yup. Maybe one episode we'll talk about dating and kind of link this thing to the dating blog that I did over the past year plus. Because that was interesting, to say the least. That was that was fun, and embarrassing in a lot of ways. But it was interesting. It was interesting. So here's some things that we can try to help us move forward when we deal with these feelings, especially for me, right? Voicing those feelings in therapy, or when you're in supervision with your boss, or with a mentor or a safe group of friends, that will help normalize the feelings and ensure that you aren't alone. We can also try to write down a list of achievements, skills, and successes to determine that they really do have concrete value to share to the world. Having a really strong support system and getting ongoing feedback also helps validate our efforts and outcomes that are important to help improve our self-confidence. So my thing is, I think I like to bounce feedback off of my best friend Ricky. Ricky Strong, Charles Strong, whichever one. Yeah, I'm sure he'll hear this and like, bro, don't use my government name, dog. Don't use that name. But he does use it professionally though, so I might get away with it. But Ricky is a LPC supervisor in Louisiana, and my lifelong best friend. Some of y'all who know me, have known me since high school, know him as my first wife. I was there before his current wife. He was there before my ex-wife, so he was my first. But I tend to bounce ideas off of him as another mental health therapist, and he's kind of my anchor in a way that he helps kind of validate the ideas that I come up with and I discuss with some of my kids in therapy. Of course, I don't go into grand details, I guess, about demographics and stuff like that, but some of the therapeutic measures I may try to use, or ideas I may throw at my kids as far as thinking about their kind of symptoms and their behavior and other creative ways. Bouncing those ideas off of Ricky helps give me confidence that what I'm trying and what I'm going for can work. And one thing he also reminds me is that at the end of the day, I can't internalize my clients' progress or setbacks. It's good to feel that sense of success and value whenever my kids are making progression. But when they have setbacks, I struggle with them having setbacks as well. Then I often feel like it is a reflection on the lack of work that I'm doing, as opposed to remembering my job is just to impart the skills and the ideas. It's their job to actually put in the work into action. So having friends like Ricky and having coworkers who, are supportive in their own ways and offer props in their own ways, and even getting positive feedback and validation from my clients and their families in particular, is a way to help me kind of work through my imposter syndrome. I had a client who I made significant progress with this young man, and I'm very, very proud of him. He tested for gifted. He was able to work on his social skills and be able to not feel like he couldn't be away from his adoptive mom, was able to improve his social functioning, was able to decrease his anxiety and his ADHD, made honor roll. He and his adoptive mom bought me a Star Wars clock, which is on my desk. And that felt really, really good, man. Like to know the amount of impact that you have on somebody's life, and know that your work is valuable, felt so amazing. And it's those things that I have to keep remembering, that this is why I'm here. And, like I say all the time at work, I want to put forth an effort, and I put forth maximum effort for all of my kids. But when I see little black kids that are in therapy for a myriad of things, whether that be foster care, parents that were on drugs, sexual abuse, physical abuse, neglect, I want to give those kids 300% of me as a therapist because I want to see them grow and succeed and not fall into the system or fall into the negative patterns that their parents fell into that damage these kids. And my heart goes out to them even when they struggle, like especially when they struggle. My heart absolutely goes out to them all the time, and I feel like it's my responsibility as a black man, as a therapist, to normalize therapy within our community, to be a mentor or role model in a way, even as a therapist, knowing that my place in their life will only be temporary and that there'll be a time where I'm not around anymore. But to be an example of what a good adult can be in my life, to help them find their way and to let them know that, you don't have, your life does not have to play out like your parents played out. Your life can be so much more than that, and right now you're probably being given a different opportunity, especially for my kids who are in foster care or up for adoption, that your future life can be drastically different, if you allow those opportunities to happen and you take advantage of the good things that happen for you. So those are things I have to try to remind myself as I'm working through my anxiety and I'm working through my imposter syndrome, that I'm here for a reason. And, the good Lord blessed me to make it through every struggle that I went through to be a lesson for somebody else, whether that's my daughter or one of the kids that I serve. I'm here for a purpose and I'm here for a reason. And you are as well. Okay? So let's remember that, guys. We're here for a purpose. We're here for a reason. We are worthy and deserve all of the good things in life that come to us. Whew. Okay. So I think that's going to be it for this session today, guys. So, yeah. I think this was fun, and I think I will be coming back to do more of this. I'm going to have to figure out what my schedule is going to be as far as this thing goes. I'm thinking maybe every other week, And I know it don't have to be excessively long or anything like that. Most of my therapy sessions usually go between like 45 minutes to like an hour, maybe 10. So that's probably not a bad time for a mental health podcast. I mean, I'm not going to be like the black guy with tips, and I don't have all the bells and whistles of sounds yet. I don't have the good puns like Rod and Karen do. If I work towards that, I'll have to figure that out, try to incorporate that. But yeah, this has been interesting, and I think I'll be coming back for more of this. So, my name is Byron Taylor. Like I said, I am a certified mental health therapist. Remember, seek out mental health if you feel like you need to. If you're in mental health therapy, continue going, continue making progress, continue pushing. All right. You can find me on social media at Captain_Ingenuity. That's CAPT_Ingenuity. INGENUITY. I love that word, by the way. I get very giddy anytime I hear the word ingenuity. Just like, that's my word. I love it. You can find me at Captain Ingenuity on Instagram and Twitter. Probably not gonna drop my Xbox gamer tag in here. That's for the homies. I think most of the people that are gonna listen to this are already friends with me on Facebook. So yeah, I think I'll keep the Facebook borders kind of closed. We'll see how this thing goes, and maybe I'll have to do like a Facebook page or something like that. I don't know, but this was fun. And I look forward to doing this again. So hopefully you have a good week. you have a good couple of weeks. And whenever you come back to the Captain's Couch, we'll be ready to discuss and be willing to be open and honest. And I appreciate you coming. Y'all take it easy.